Welcome back to the Print Shop Print Fam. Today we are talking about FileSprint's management system. It's Luma. They built it with FileMaker, and we're going to walk over and through their process. We're going to do a follow-up live stream to answer questions, as well as we've talked about maybe building maybe a workflow process for my pen system or just a generic one so people can follow along. So stay subscribed so you can see that. Big shout out to FileSprint for not only doing this video with me, but also sponsoring today's episode. They are a large format trade-only printer, so if you need big things, signs, banners, stickers, they're there to help. You can save 10% off your first order using the coupon code DNSCure. On to the video. Take it, Gene.
Hi, I'm Gene Hamzy. I'm one of the owners here at FileSprint. And in case you don't know who I am, FileSprint.com. We're a trade-only wholesale printer. Check us out. Anyway, today we're going to kind of go through our MIS system, our internal management information system, the software that we've built using FileMaker to track our production through our shop. So what this handles is we're using FileMaker to start with from the job that's entered in our website. All of our orders go through our website. Our FileMaker system grabs that order information, applies certain automations to it, works with our pre-flight software, which we can get into a little bit, tracks it through our production, and then actually we print the shipping labels and things like that right out of the system, and then it sends all that data back to our website. So in a nutshell, that's what our FileMaker system here at FileSprint does for us, and that's what we want to go through. Sound good?
So FileMaker, you run it locally, but there is an online option, correct?
Yeah. So FileMaker's really it's been around for a long time. It's one of the older pieces of software out there, and we do run it all locally. So there's clients. So there's actually software that's installed. It's not browser-based. There is a browser-based kind of version that you can get into. We don't do any of that here at FileSprint. I know people really love that. I've never really found it to be a real strong suit of FileMaker. But again, I'm not really an expert. I know what I know for building our internal system, and that's it. It's the only thing that I've ever built. It's the only thing that I know about FileMaker. But we host it locally. We have all our artwork hosted locally. We've got a network closet. We have all that stuff in there. We've got like a PowerEdge, Dell PowerEdge server, and we have it all hosted on there. And then every computer that uses it here locally has FileMaker installed on a client. I'm really the only one who accesses it remotely, and I do that with a kind of a direct IP connection. So it is over the internet. I'm not like remoting in to do it. But yeah, I'm the only one. Otherwise, since we only have the one location, it's all local.
Is it Windows, Mac, both?
All of the above. Yeah, Windows and Mac. There's an iPhone, iOS app that's really good. There's no Android app, although I think there's rumors that there's one coming out. So we're all Windows here at the shop, and then I use a Mac at home, and it works seamlessly across both platforms. Yeah.
Well, I guess I know we asked some questions on the Facebook group, so we'll probably go over those at the end if we didn't catch them.
Yeah, I'll try. I saw some of those. Yeah,
maybe let's just
above my pay grade, but
let's walk through it.
Yeah. So FileMakers are really good. One last thing I'll say about FileMaker is I think it bridges the gap really well between like something like Monday.com or even Shopbox or some of these kind of, dare I say, entry level kind of database like management systems where you can set up stuff and it's pretty customizable, but it's not full blown like PHP and SQL and all that stuff where it's all contained in one package. And so that's why I really like it. You have kind of an editor side. So for example, let's say this layout here, this is called a layout. This is our jobs list. If I go to edit layout, I can go in here right now and live. I'm working on our live file, so I'm going to mess with some people here, but I can add, I'll double click on this and then, sorry, off the wrong screen. And I can add a button, and this is the TTMS button, right? And of course, I don't have it doing anything, but I can save those changes, and then live, everybody in the shop can see the TTMS button, right? So it's
live as well.
Yeah, and it's so for me as an owner and a developer, it's like I'm not compiling stuff, I'm not messing with it. It's dangerous on one side because I can screw the whole system up like really easily. But then on the other side, it's like those changes that I want to make, they're made instantly, they're implemented very quickly. So I'll remove that button.
That's fine.
And but you can see, so this this layout editor here is not that much different than like Adobe Illustrator or graphic design tools that we're used to, so it's great. There's layers, object layers here. You see all the objects. And so anyway, and then you can get into the obviously there's all the scripting and things like that's happening. So all of those are contained within this one unit. So it for me, it's like as easy as it can be, but still highly customizable, right? We're building everything from scratch. So
I guess probably for me, the easiest way to understand it is like maybe walking through like the workflow. So like you said, it ties to firesprint.com.
Yep.
And it will automatically pull the orders from Firesprint. So like maybe what happens at that point? Like, do you have something running where it checks every 1 minute, every 5 minutes, or is it a push from the website? Like how does that part of it work?
Yeah, so we will use webhooks and things like that. We use that in our pre-flight file where there's actually two-way communication, but with our website, it's all initiated by FileMaker. It's just a one-way communication. We've got kind of I think it's a REST API. I'm not a developer, but it's an API that sits out there, and essentially on the back end of our website, there's a text file, right? And it's based. There's one file for every. It's all JSON, but there's one file for every order. And so FileMaker, every Lumen, this is our FileMaker solution, Lumen, every, I think, 10 minutes, I have a computer that goes and just checks the website for new orders. So it looks at wherever the last order was, and then it starts looking for orders, next in line until it runs into no orders. And so then it'll sync all those in. It looks for certain changes. So if we know there's changes on our side, it'll sync all that stuff. And it's just all a bunch of JSON data coming down. And so we parse that data. We actually take that information and we create orders and jobs and all kinds of stuff, client contact information, account information from that information on the back end of our website. So it's like once you kind of understand it, get into it, it's pretty simple. There's not that much going on. FileMaker goes to a web page. The web page got a bunch of text on it. FileMaker reads through that text and builds the job. That makes sense?
Yep.
So we, then we've got tons and tons of automations set up for when those jobs come in. So looking for, I don't know, I don't want to bore you guys either, but we have these automations. So for example, this is a pretty simple one. If like you're going to our website and you're making these selections of products, and let's say on grommets, you say none. Well, rather than saying grommets none on our job tickets or in the workflow, we just want to erase the line. We don't want to talk about grommets. Does that make sense? So it just keeps things really simple for our operators to look at. So, we have these automations built where it's actually looking for the value equal to none or none plus 0 or all these different variations of none. And we remove that line from the job. So this is something that was built from scratch. And, I could probably talk for hours just about this alone, but, and you can see all the different automations that we have. And actually we've got another guy here that builds all these. I wrote the code that like the underlying infrastructure, but all these automations are set up by our pre-flight team, not me. So those automations go through, and then eventually we get to a point where we actually have a job in our system. So we'll have we'll have a job. Let's see, ignore this for a second. We'll have a job come into our system. And so this is kind of our job ticket, if you will, right? And so you can see here's the information, and this is mostly from our website. And it's all, these are the selections. If you go to firesprint.com and buy something, you're making these drop-down selections. That's what all these selections are. They make that ticket. We name the job something here. We've got internal notes that we talk about on the job. And then the real workflow, I think maybe the magic behind it is we generate a route, which is, to us, a route is a list of procedures. So it's all the things that need to happen with this job in our system. So new is just, it's kind of a holding status, which sometimes automation will push right through new if everything lines up. If a client has a note on a job or something like that, we stop the job. So we really mean it when you add notes or add different variables to the job, it slows it down through our system because the automation just gives up on it and says, nope, humans got to look at it. So then people
have that warning on your website. It literally says, if you put a note in here,
if your artwork is legitimate and that's not the right term. You know what I mean, though. If your artwork like is good, it's sized correctly, it doesn't have some weird stuff in it, it's vector, whatever, and you don't have any notes, and everything's just pretty. We'll skip right past the new and even the pre-flight step. Our system will automatically pre-flight it. The first person to see it right now will be a pre-flighter, but all he's doing is comparing the two images of the pre-flight file and what you uploaded and making sure that they're the same. And then he's got one button click to move it into nesting or batching, where we lay it out on a full-size board. So that's very fast. I mean, that's minutes within the time you've placed the order, unless you put a note in there. If you put a note in there, then you're waiting for a client advocate, which we have a team of 4 people that go and look at those notes and things like that and try and decipher whether or not it's something that we should stop the job for or change details or whatever, right? So these procedures are very editable. So like I can go in and I can actually delete like this procedure and say we don't need to actually cut this for some reason if we want to do that. Or if I wanted to add something like grommeting, that's something that gets commonly added. Usually we have automation that'll add that grommeting, and you can see it automatically put it. I'm pleased with this. It automatically put it in the right spot where you'd have it between flatbed knife cutting, but before shipping. And I can change the orders. Let's say, for example, we wanted to grommet before we cut it, which we would never do, but I can change the order of that and then, kind of go from there. So since this,
edit your procedure for each job individually, but you could also edit the automation so that it does it for all future jobs.
Yeah. So we go, I'll show you the routes. So we go into, so we don't actually have that many routes, right? But digital sticker, for example, you can see this is the order that's kind of set up for routes, and we've got some notes on it. But this is what at the item level. So we use there's so much to talk about here. We use SKUs, we use item numbers on the back end of our website. And the item number is tied to one of these routes. It's predefined or predetermined, tied to one of these routes, right? So as soon as it comes in, this route will automatically get added. And then the automation will run, which can add additional procedures or even change the route based on maybe some selections or, if you say grommets, yes, then we add grommets. None of these routes have grommets on them. Grommets are added when you say yes to a grommet select.
Those automations that you saw just previously.
Yeah. And so, we have all these predefined routes. We keep things as simple as we possibly can here, but then you can see the just the steps. Most of these, so screen would be a little different, right? You've got our screen printing steps here, but those are applied based on the item number that the website provides us, and the website is choosing the item number based on kind of a flow of your selections when you're making selections of the product, right? So there's a ton of predetermining and stuff like that on the back end of our website for this all to work, right? As I'm talking through this, I'm like, it is a lot of work to get this stuff to come in and flow. Automation is hard, because automation isn't hard because it's like software complicated. Automation is hard because you are forced to figure out all the possible scenarios and what your answer is to each one of those scenarios, right? So it's like, what if the client selects this combination of things? What if the client selects this combination of things? How are we going to handle that in our system? Well, we have to go through those things one by one and give our system, whether it's Lumen or our website or anything else, a solution for each of those scenarios. And so I think that's where people they think of automation as being magic. It's not. It's like the complete opposite. It's like as dull and as simple as you can make it. That's how you automate, right? So I don't know. Maybe you agree or disagree.
The issue that I'm running into with my business is that because it's like you said, I don't know. This is our second time kind of recording, so we might have talked about this or not in this recording. Yeah. But if you can't take a piece of paper to have the steps, then being able to make it in FileMaker will happen. And that's part of my problem with my business. There are certain things that I do that I absolutely can have a piece of paper, a checklist, a process. And there are other things that are just so one-off or so custom that I don't have the procedure, which is actually I'm trying to change that in my business because my business is so dependent on me that I lose sleep over it. I don't feel like I can go on vacation with my family. There are so many things that I feel kind of tied to my business over. And that's why I'm in the process of ripping away. As scary as it is, I'm ripping away a bunch of services because I want to get to the point where I have a process for the products that I do internally.
Yeah.
I don't have to have as much of a process for things that I outsource to you guys or outsource to other local products company because they're responsible for the process. My process is get the cell, print the art, submit the order.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. So we're about $6-7 million in revenue, right? And there's 32, I think there will be. We're about to hire another person. 32, 33 of us here. Give you an idea of our scale. And so at this point with me, I'm fighting those same challenges, but they're not for jobs, right? There isn't a job that comes through the system that needs any input from me. There isn't a client phone call that needs any input from me. I've done a good job of kind of eliminating myself from those things or taking myself out of those environments. And it's not for my own sake, it's for my team's sake. If I'm in the way, with 33 people, if something has to run through me, I'm in the way. And, but the challenge that I'm facing is still a similar one where I need to take myself out of the equation because so much of this automation, so much of Lumen, I built Lumen from scratch. So nobody knows as well as I do. We've got a good team here that can kind of figure things out, especially if it's not the first time the issue has happened. But when code starts going awry, I mean, it's me that needs to do it. And I will say that I have never actually found a FileMaker bug. Every single issue I've run into was my problem, not something I did wrong, not something FileMaker did wrong. So yeah, I mean that's a real challenge in a growing business, and it continues to be, I think, until the owner retires. I mean, it's like we get in our own way, and so it's just different depending on the size of the company. So okay, should we get back into this?
Yes.
All right. So essentially, and these, I have FireSprint jobs pulled up here. They're internal work you can do. You see testing we've done and things for, whatnot. You might have seen one of these mailers that you might have gotten in the past. These jobs are errored. So for whatever reason, there's some issue in which they have an error. So, there's no thumbnail. So it's lighted up pink and it won't let us progress through the automation systems. But this is actually an old job from our old system we just pulled in. So there's no procedures for that. And so then basically, let me think, the most useful thing to take you guys through. We've got these procedures set up. We've got a job. You can imagine if it's in new status. And, in the simplest form, the team is coming in here and they're saying, I'm done with pre-flight. So there'll be a button here to complete pre-flight. And so they'll click that and it'll pop up. It'll look like this actually. No, it won't let me do it because I'm in the wrong workstation. Digital nesting. Let's say I'm in pre-flight. Let me change this, which I'll explain this in a second. But you pick where you are. So I'll say I'm in pre-flight, shift 1. And you can see my shift and my workstation changed here. Now, when I go to recomplete pre-flight, I'll get something like this that pops up and it'll say, well, how many did you do? Well, pre-flight's silly because we're doing 100% of them, but all of Lumen works off of, our internal system works off of quantities complete. So normally if I would need to do this, this would be pre-filled with the 100% of the whatever quantity needed to be completed. If I was cutting, I might say I've done 30 out of 100 or something like that if we want to keep up with it. So we do that. We have the ability to print a job label, which is a 4x6 zebra thermal label to follow like a physical job around the shop. And then I can add notes and things like that to the process or the procedure to let other people know what's going on. If I need to undo it, so if I wanted to undo pre-flight, I could come in here and I could say, negative 100, and that would undo the 100 that needed to be done.
So this is the screen that you were talking about earlier that has the uploaded file versus the pre-flighted file.
That's not it, actually. That's the pre-flight toolbox. That's a whole different thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's let me see if I can show you that. I don't know if it'll let me in there.
So you have like only certain computers or certain shifts or certain things can do certain, like, this is way more complicated than I was expecting.
Oh yeah. This is so basically the way our system is set up is it's not really designed for like one person, right? I never built it assuming that one person has to do everything. We have an operator out on the floor, and we can go out on the floor. Maybe we'll do a little call after this, and I can show you the workstations the operators are using. But each operator they come in, and one of the first things they do, well, they don't usually have to do this because the computers don't move. We have a computer at every workstation. So at each printer has a computer, each cutter has a computer. We got a computer over by grommeting. We got a computer by each of the graph techs, right? And I'll show you. And they all have FileMaker up. They all have Lumen up on them. And so they will pick. They're not often picking because the computer stays put, but they'll pick which workstation they're at. So there's our Durst printer, for example, and then go. And then they'll come in here, and I don't want to click on this because it's going to show. I can probably actually, you guys won't be able to see it. I can say, my schedule, I'm first shift here on 9:15, and I can see here's the work that I have to do running the Durst today. Does that, this is like, there's so much to this. I know that like everybody's like, probably, but hopefully I can trigger some questions and then we can get into it. But these are the boards or the batches that need to be done during first shift today. Now we have a first shift and a night shift and then kind of an in-between that we'll track.
So does this so those are the ones that need to be done, but will more jobs be added during the shift? Or
yeah, so in this case, nothing will get added to this shift unless we schedule it. So we've got a scheduler. Let me close a couple of these here. By the way, like these tabs up here and all this search bar and stuff like that, all custom, all built from scratch. There's not like a template for tabs at the top or something like that. And so it's probably overwhelming. This wouldn't be your first solution to have tabs and things like that. You'd do it much more simply probably. But we have a scheduler. And so here's the basically the batches. These aren't jobs. These are groups of jobs. You can see there's more than one job there. The batches that we have built. And then I've got Michael here. He would go in and he'd set a schedule. So he'd pick the schedule. So we want first shift for 9:15. That's the one we're currently on. And you can see that schedule. And I could take this and add it to the bottom of this schedule. And then under tasks here, this operator would see it add here. But this is like literally live. He's working on this right now, so I don't want to mess with it too much. But the reason for the 2 columns here is because we're scheduling batches. I give generally we oftentimes will have 2 pieces of equipment running side by side doing the same thing. So we have 2 columns, so Michael can kind of load up 2 pieces of equipment, or he can schedule first shift and second shift for the same piece of equipment or something like that. So this is something I'm working on fixing. That flashing that you just saw, that's an error that I don't like, and I'm not exactly sure why that's happening. But you can see at the bottom, I have both shifts. We could look at the next shift. So yeah, he's not scheduling third shift yet. So we only have 1 shift scheduled right now. But most of the stuff we get, we're printing and shipping within 24, 48 hours. So we don't have stuff scheduled out more than a day or 2. If we went in and looked,
you don't have it scheduled out because
we don't have it.
You're printing it so fast that you can't, there's nothing to put that far out.
Yeah, we have 30,000 square feet we need to print today. We've got 25,000 square feet we need to print Monday. I think there's 10 or 12,000. This was as of about an hour ago in our production meeting. We have 10 or 12,000 square feet to print Tuesday, and less than 1,000 on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So there might be jobs that are just pushed way out for some reason or things like that. But it's to give you a scale. I mean, you can see. Well, here, I'll show you. So if I go to their dashboard, which I have not actually set up graphs or charts. This is new. We just implemented this a couple months ago. I'm still building it. Between you and me, I'm burning out a little bit, so I'm just maintaining it at the moment. But I'll come back to it and get deeper into it. So yesterday, the 14th, you can see we shipped 655 jobs. We added 588. And that was over 219 packages. And there's 852 active jobs in our system. So we're shipping 655. We shipped 655 yesterday, and we have 852 active in our system. So we're going through stuff very quickly. There's not, if we were 5 days out, you would see 655 shipped yesterday, but 2,000, 3,000 jobs here or something like that, right? So, anyway, okay. So I know I've jumped around a lot. Is anybody following us, you think?
I know this has got me really badly wanting to get FileMaker and start playing.
Yeah. But it's all, I'll show you something. So we'll get into scripts here. I'll show you something that might scare you a little bit or help you feel. But these are the folders. These are all the scripts that run all the automations, all the button clicks, the script, the syncing scripts and things like that. So even if I just go in, I'll go into orders, and then I've got get jobs from the API. Darren, I might need you to no. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I didn't have some API key sitting up there. Okay. I think we're good. But this is the job sync script. So this isn't even shipping information or client information or anything like that. This is just like the data for printing, or for what we're going to print, the job information. For us, we call the job, it's the line in the shopping cart. So when you put multiple things in our shopping cart, each line is a job. And then the whole shopping cart is an order, which we don't really work at an order level at all. We don't really care how many shopping cart transactions you have. We care how many jobs there are, because each job is a piece of artwork. It's a set of parameters, size, quantity, those kinds of things, right? So it doesn't really matter if you order 2 sets of 100 signs in the same shopping cart or 2 sets of 100 signs in totally different shopping carts. They all get put into the same system the same way, right? So there's no templates for this. I wrote every line of code here.
I don't know.
What's that?
You had help.
A
little.
No. I mean, every line of this code was like, where I have help. is like hardware. Like I refuse to go out and set up hardware in our shop. I have a couple of guys who help with that. Our shipping software, we use a company, it's off the shelf. It's called NRG. And I actually hired them to integrate their shipping. It's a FileMaker shipping solution. I hired them to integrate it into Lumen. So I actually built this 2011, this ship and print labels. This is the thing that actually ships. This is the script that ships the labels. Let's see what this is, 300 some lines of code. Which that's not actually true because there's a bunch of blanks. So it's not that many lines of type code. They came in and he wrote about 70 or 80% of this script. But that's about it. Like, I mean, otherwise that's why it took me a year and a half to build it. And it's still not even like done. You see, like, I don't have a dashboard, you know? So there's a lot to do. Yeah. So essentially the operators come out, they pick the piece of equipment they're on, the shift they're on. They'll have a schedule. So a my work type schedule to go pick from, and then they'll go through and they'll click these jobs and they will, well, that's probably pretty safe, but they'll click these jobs and they'll go through.
We'll buzz the artwork out.
Yeah. It's okay though. I don't know that's pretty generic, but, they'll go through those one at a time.
So I think one question people will have is all this information is in your MIS that's next to, like, in this case, we're at the Durst, right?
Yep.
How, like, is there automation or things set up that will put the job on the Durst? Or, like, how does that process work going from, okay, now I'm at this piece of equipment and I need to, like, this is my workload and I need to print this 4mm Coro and it's double-sided. Well, the first one is single-sided. Like, how do I pull that file up on the Durst? Or is that all fight it?
So where the biggest chunk of our automation is we use it's Enfocus, which might be owned by Esco. I'm not sure. Enfocus Switch and Enfocus Pit Stop. Okay, so Switch is it's like an automation tool. It's like a flow tool, and then Pit Stop is actually the heavy lifting pre-flight tool that we use. So we have tons of automation in Pit Stop. Pit Stop adds grommet marks for us. It verifies size. It converts cut paths into the appropriate layers. Any sort of artwork automation is all done through Pit Stop, and then we use it used to be Tilia. We bought it from Tilia, and then they were bought by Esco. Tilia Phoenix for our imposition or our nesting or batching, all synonyms software. And that's actually what takes the jobs and builds these. And we have webhook connections. It's a combination of a bunch of stuff. It's webhooks, and then it's XML and JSON. And we're taking that information, and in some cases we'll have Lumen like drop a CSV. Oh, that's another one, CSV. We'll have Lumen drop a CSV into a hot folder, and Switch is constantly looking at that hot folder. It gets that information at CSV, and it'll build a batch from it, or it'll build a nest of files. That's if you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, there'd be no way to follow that. But yeah, so there's without a visual, I think it's kind of hard to explain, but I can explain it. I just want to make sure people are understanding and saying it's useful. But we will, from a simple standpoint, the way that we connect our systems is we use similar naming conventions for everything. So we have this batch number here, B5071027, for example. When we generate the file in the RIP file that goes to the Durst, it starts with B5071027. So the operator, to answer your question, no, at the Durst, there's no communication between the Durst and Lumen. The operator goes and he types 5071027 into the Durst, finds a file and starts it printing, verifies the details that he only needs one board, for example, the material and things like that, and then starts it printing. The Zune cutters at the Zune, it's the same thing. We've placed the cut file in with a similar naming convention into the file. We know what the barcodes are that are printing on the jobs. Every one of these jobs has barcodes on it. We know those barcodes through a little bit of two-way communication between Lumen and Switch using webhooks. And those barcodes will pull up files like wherever they are because we name everything the same. Does that kind of make sense? I mean, that's a simplest form. That's how stuff communicates, but it's still pretty manual. We're not.
So it puts the file in the right spot, but it doesn't necessarily automatically load it on the printer. But
Right.
Are they manually loading it, or are they scanning a barcode?
So at the DERST, for example, what we'll do is we'll drop files. Lumen has all the details that we need. Lumen's communicating with Switch pretty well, and then Switch will take the file. It'll build the file in Phoenix or impose this or create this batch, put a barcode on it, and then drop it in the ready to rip folder on the DERST. And then the DERST, it's a hot folder, so the DERST will automatically rip it and it'll be ready to print. It's like 2 clicks to print, right? And so that's sitting there waiting. And then the operator really ignores the file until they get the instruction here on their schedule to run it. And so he'll see this. This will be on the list. He'll like click this one and say, I'm working on it or something. And he'll go to the DERST and they're granted the screens are right next to each other. He'll go type in the DERST B507-1056 and it'll pull that up and he'll start printing it. And then when he's done, he'll go in and he'll select it and he'll say complete. And that will pop up and it'll ask him how many he did and, show him some of those details again.
So basically, for printing, like it's manual to load the job on the DERST, but when it prints on the DERST, it puts a barcode on it, correct?
Yes.
So
These files have barcodes built into them. Switch is doing that. Switch and Pit Stop. Well, Phoenix is doing that. Those three. Derek is our guy for that. He manages all of that. I know actually very little about it.
As far as like a workflow, basically, like, are you using Onyx or Caldera or a RIP for the DERST?
DERST has their own RIP. It's DERST workflow, but we use Onyx. So, for example, on our Canon Colorados, we're using Onyx there.
So basically, the operator for the printer will look like you've got Lumen here, the RIP computer here, and they'll say, okay, I need to print this job, so they'll print it. And we'll use the example of a core flash sheet. That core flash sheet prints whatever that job file is, and that job has a barcode on it.
Yes.
And then the workflow says, okay, now take it to the Zoom. Does the Zoom operator scan the barcode, or are they doing a similar step where it's like, okay, this is the job, and
the Zoom operator will scan. He's got a barcode scanner that's tied into both the Lumen PC and the Zoom Cut Center PC. And he actually they're touch screen, so he'll just tap the screen that he wants to input in. And so in Lumen here, like let's say I'm right here, if I just start typing, you'll see it just pops into the that's get on layout keystroke. It's a trigger. But anyway, you'll just start typing and it'll search for these things. So if I so he'll scan that barcode on that job. There's a step that I'm skipping here intentionally just for sake of it. We actually have different barcodes for everything, but like for the sake of understanding it, if you just assume that our barcodes all say 507-1056 for this, it's essentially the same thing. And he'll scan that there at the Zoomed, and then we'll go out and they'll print a 4x6 job label. So I can do that. Print label. So yeah, we print these. These are ZPL. They're Zebra programming language, but we'll print these 4x6 barcodes. Let me do one that's a little more colorful. And I'll just kind of cover up some of that artwork there. But we'll we print these and there's that barcode right there with the information there. And shipping will scan that barcode. Kind of. I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but shipping will scan that barcode to pull up the job and then have all the shipping details. And shipping's working off of, this screen, basically, kind of. There's a little more to it, but they've got their own workstation just like anybody else does, where they go into shipping and it shows them something different. If I say, so for example, I'll just show you real quick. If I say I'm at shipping and go, then you will see some of these things change. So these have lit up green. This is the shipping method over here. B is best way, meaning that Lumen actually determines, NRG really, our shipping FileMaker solution, determines the lowest cost way to get it there in the fastest amount of time. So it's a little bit of an algorithm. It's mostly based on price, but it is based on time a little bit. So for example, if it's $1 more to get it there a day early, we will choose to ship it to get it there a day early, for example. But this layout and this setup is changing based on the workstation you're at, right? And that's all, just based on hidden elements. So like, for example, in FileMaker here, this green box, that green box is back here. I don't know if I have it. Yeah, I've got conditional formatting. So if the job is ready to ship, essentially, if we keep it really simple, the code here, the job is, I'll specify here. If the job is ready to ship, then it turns green, right? And there's a whole bunch of stuff like that in FileMaker. And I turn that rectangle from clear to green. And so that helps our shipping guys, since these are old internal FireSprint jobs, they're all considered ready to ship. Even apparently the erroneous ones, but that's probably a bug. Yeah. So
yeah, way overwhelming all at the same time.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. You can see, we have 71,000 jobs in here. So if you're thinking, like, people will say FileMaker, is like, if you got in your mind that it's something like Microsoft Access, you're way off, right? It's like Access times 50 or 100. It's a lot closer, I think, in my limited knowledge. Again, I'm not a developer, but I think it's a lot closer to what you can accomplish, using like some sort of SQL type, high end. The real stuff, the stuff that the real developers use, this is a lot closer to that than it is to Access, because there aren't really any record limits. I'll even go into like our log, for example, has 2.3 million records in it. And this is all within the same database. These aren't separate databases. So this database is 30 gigabytes in size, and that's not including any of the artwork. So it's like, FileMaker's pretty capable if you want it to be, if you kind of understand what you're doing with it. You can really do a lot. And you can see, we're local, of course, but it's not real laggy. I'm showing and doing a lot of computations. There's a lot of data on the screen. Every one of these things is like asking, should I be hidden or not? And, I'm showing actual thumbnails of artwork and things like that. And I can scroll through this pretty smoothly. It's if you build it right, it's pretty solid.
So this is Lumen 23.
Yeah.
So this is a new version. What prompted you to build a new version?
So this is just
was it from scratch, or did you modify the old one?
No, Lumen 23 really was from scratch. The original Lumen was from scratch as well. So I started building the original Lumen back in early 2018. And I didn't build another FileMaker solution to teach myself FileMaker. I literally learned FileMaker to build Lumen. So, there's a lot of infrastructure and things like that underneath the hood. So with FileMaker, you get into it, there's all of these, let me zoom out a little bit. There's all of these relationships here, and you can see my columns. They're pretty well organized and they're color coded and things like that. And this is Lumen 23. if I would show you the infrastructure, it'd take me a minute to get into it. If I'd show you this infrastructure, how the database relationships work in Lumen, it was a big freaking spider web right in the middle. It's just really complicated, easy to break. This is much more straightforward. And so I learned how to build Lumen, and we processed like 150,000 jobs through it. It worked well. It held on. We did all the same stuff. Actually, we did more in old Lumen than we did in new Lumen. But it was getting to a point where it was like, I know that we're going to have trouble with automation. Like as we start to connect to other pieces of software and things like that, it was too complicated for those things. And so I said, this is too much. I need to just start over from scratch. So I decided early. It took me a year. I contemplated it for a year because I'm like, this is a big, thousands of hours. And I'm not I'm the CEO. So I have to do all my other jobs, as well as this. I need to stay focused on the company, on marketing, on our production floor, everything else. And so it was a big decision to do it again. But I looked at a bunch of MIS systems, print MIS type systems. There's actually one called Print MIS. Lift, Durst has one called Lift. It's amazing. It's incredible. But, I just looked at it and it's like a lot of those systems are built for shops that do dozens of thousands of dollar jobs, right? Where you can actually have somebody log in, username and password, and they're like, I'm working on this, and they can kind of like update and add notes and stuff. That's all wonderful. But we do thousands of $10 jobs, right? And so we need the system to move stuff through automatically. And I just didn't see how we could do that in an economical way. Those systems will do that kind of stuff, but you're hiring their developers for $200, $300. ESCO's developers, they've got automation engine. They're $300 an hour. And I'm just like, man, like we're going to spend $500,000, $250,000, which we don't really have, to do this. I know how to do it in FileMaker. So here we are.
What were you using before Lumen?
We started before Lumen. What was it? I think the moment before we switched to Lumen, we were using something called Smart Sheets, which is kind of like an Excel on steroids. We used Microsoft Access for a while. A lot of paper systems, printing invoices out of QuickBooks and, typing all the data into QuickBooks and just recognizing what to do and shoving that in a clear plastic job sleeve and running that through the shop. A lot of paper. But similar to what I think everybody else is fighting, at the time, I don't think this was 2017. Monday wasn't as big of a deal. I think at that point it was called something different. They changed their name. It was Workplace or something. I don't know. But yeah, I'm rambling, but not much. A lot of paper.
I think this answers a lot of like the basic questions that we'll be able to answer more during the live stream.
Yeah.
Let's just go over the Facebook questions real quick, just to make sure that those that are in the group can get their answers now rather than having to wait for the live stream.
Right. If I can, I saw them and I have to, remind me what they are. Maybe I'll come up with a solution.
Well, so Austin says, is there a way to implement automation? Which the answer to that is yes. But let's say a quote hasn't been responded to in X number of days and you have it reset to a different body paragraph to follow up. And then we talked about implementation of barcodes and package tracking through the workflow. So we talked about that already, but I'm assuming people use it, like you mainly use it for production. It can be built to do job quoting and you can build it to be basically whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure the answer to this question is yes. It's just dependent on how much time you want to spend on it.
Yeah. So if I create a database, new FileMaker solution, they call them. I mean, this is what you get. It's blank. There's nothing here. Scripts, go to scripts. There's nothing here. Like that's the one thing I think that's overwhelming for people with FileMaker is you can go and find some pre-built solutions. There's like FM Starting Point, Richard Carlton Consulting. We've actually hired a couple of their guys to help me with things here and there. But it's consulting. It's not like they're not doing the coding. They're like helping me through a problem that I can't solve. But yeah, I mean, you can, so like the answer to can I do this in FileMaker is almost always yes, unless, especially if it's internal, like if it's internally facing, or if it's just working directly with a client that works already. I would be concerned with building like a shopping cart with FileMaker that's like totally public. I don't think FileMaker is your solution for that. But your back-end tracking and all that stuff is very good. So barcodes, I want to answer one thing about barcodes really quickly. If you don't know, barcodes are really simple. Barcodes are just text. You find a barcode font that you like that prints well on your printers, that you can scan easily with your scan guns, and that's it. It's so like I can turn all of these into barcodes. Like if I go to dashboard and I go to jobs, and let's just say I'll just Control D and duplicate that, and I make this right, and then so I'll open up the font here and I'll select a barcode font. So I think I have like a code.
Yeah, there's different code for layers. There's code like 128, code 39.
I don't even know what I'm. So this doesn't let me search very easily, but I'll just change this to a barcode font, like a Windows barcode font, and then it's a barcode. And you can scan that with any barcode gun. You can scan it into a text. It's like, it's not magic. A lot of people see it as magic. It's not. It's very simple. It interacts like a keyboard that's just a faster typer, right? So that's all. So essentially start off with your numbers, right? And using numbers to search and everything else. And then you can just add barcodes later. It's like, there's no magic to it. And then in terms of like your emails and stuff like that, what you're talking about. So FileMaker, there's a lot of plugins. Plugins is the next level of FileMaker, where you have plugins that'll help you do more interactions with the world outside of FileMaker, or even do things within FileMaker. We use a plugin called the MBS plugin, and that's how we're generating thumbnails from our PDFs. We use it for all kinds of stuff. We use it to parse JSON, things like that. And then you can, FileMaker will send emails natively. They're pretty basic, but you can send really advanced emails with plugins. And yeah, in terms of your like if you want to follow up in 2 days, I mean, you'd write a script that maybe you run once a day, and it goes back and it looks at old timestamps and checks to see if something's still in the system, and if not, I mean, we go through and build something that does that, like as a live stream one day, something really crazy basic.
We're going to do that. We might as well live stream building a FileMaker for me. Like, let's not just waste your time.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, I can accomplish a lot in FileMaker in a couple of hours. But this is 5 years of like working on it basically every day that has gotten me to this level. And even then, there's some guys out there that they really know their stuff, and they're looking at this and like, Gene did it all wrong. I mean, it's just kind of how it is.
So Craig is saying, or asking, if it could be used as like a file submission. So like, I know on your side you have it set up as like a JSON retrieval through APIs and whatnot. But is there maybe a plugin that like you can have, say, a contact form on your website, then automatically dumps into? I assume the answer is yes, but like, do you have more information?
Yeah.
Saying you have a file submission form or file. He specifically is talking about, he does a lot of poster printing, and so having the way to like just send people to a page that submits that information rather than necessarily placing orders, I guess.
Yeah. So like, I can think of a couple of like high level ways to go through that. One way would be to, you use some sort of online form builder, and you have an email into an SMTP that FileMaker has access to, and FileMaker can parse those emails looking for like that which is, I mean, it's kind of advanced stuff. You probably need to hire somebody to help you if you're totally new to FileMaker. The answer is like almost always yes. It's just like if I'm not a PHP JavaScript developer. I think maybe Darren, you might know more about that stuff, but like if you had a server set up with MySQL on it, PHP, JavaScript, maybe a couple of other things, and somebody said, "Can you build this for me?" The answer is yes, right? It's like, yeah, of course I can. What?
It's all about the time and the money.
Right. And so that's what's I can't think of anything out of the box that's built that way, but we could do something pretty simply. We don't do any email parsing here. What would be probably easiest is if, you know what though, FileMaker has something called, is it FM Connect? Oops. Sorry, that controls our,
Your agent.
Yeah. File. No, that's not it. Claris Connect. And this is like kind of a Zapier type integration for FileMaker. I haven't played with this at all. Like, I don't know anything about this, but there are a lot of people who have. FileMaker's got a really big, very fruitful community that, they're talking about this. And you can see we got MailChimp and Slack and is that HubSpot, and so here's Box, right? So you have them upload it to that. We use FM Connect to pull that data into FileMaker. I'm sure, you find a developer that you like talking to, find a FileMaker developer that you like talking to. And I bet that if you had something fairly custom, that there wasn't something out of the box, that they would be able to do it for less cost in FileMaker than like another developer would be able to do it just like raw from start, right? Because there's so much that like already exists, but you really do start from scratch when you start. So that's that leads into Matthew's question about, he says he's looked at FileMaker, but it seems overwhelming as to where to start. Should I just hire someone, or are there templates that exist? Yeah. So I would really, if I could give you one piece of advice, I would say, like, I don't know, Matthew, I don't know, who's watching this, but like, I know Darren, I know you understand this concept of starting on paper, but it seems like archaic. But if you can't like build a form that answers all your questions, if you need giant note boxes in your forms, then starting with something like FileMaker is going to destroy you. Okay, because that means I don't mean to be offensive when I say this, but if your work your worksheets or your job tickets are basically a piece of notebook paper and there's no questions to answer or anything like that, then you don't have like automations figured out far enough along or your business model doesn't need automations, right? Like everything you do is crazy custom. Like some of these guys do these awesome monument signage and things like that, or these just massive campaigns. Well, yeah, I mean, those, you're not going to automate a bunch of that stuff because everyone's totally custom. But those are big jobs that you're doing. But if you need a note field that you have to read to get the job right, and it's a $35 job, well, then FileMaker is going to kill you. Any piece of software that you need to build is going to feel overwhelming and incomprehensible, right? Because it's not the software, it's you. You don't have the process figured out, right? And I mean that lovingly. It took me a long time to learn this, and I still don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it comes down to the fact that, like, if you can't do it on paper, how are you going to explain it to a developer anyway?
Right. So yeah,
if you're going to pay someone to do it, you have to be able to, like, that's one of the things that I hate about like designing artwork for people, where it's like, I don't care, just throw it together, and then you put it together and like, I don't like that. That's like, yes, I mean, you didn't tell me what you do like.
Right.
You only tell me that you don't like this. And I think it comes down to, and like, again, what I spoke to earlier is that's what I'm trying to change in my business. I'm trying to make it, I want the things that I do internally to have that very structured process. It starts at A, goes to B,
Yep.
goes to C, and
Yep.
maybe it doesn't need D, and so it can skip D. But like, because for me, I care less about the automation. Like, I like the automation, but I want the structure in place so that anyone can do it. Because right now, not anyone can do it. And that thing that goes to your notes field, like if you have to have a mile's worth of notes,
Yeah.
then only certain people will be able to take care of the job.
Right. Yeah. It's got to be. I mean, you can see like if you go into our jobs, there's no notes, right? It's very. I do this to save space. Let's see, unarchive. It's pretty specific. We go down. All these things are all the same. This note is actually an error. It's not even supposed to be there. But we've got our processes that we go through. There's nothing to talk about. There's stuff embedded in the file, but I don't know. People ask me, did you print that sign? We'll drive by something. I have no idea. Our system would have handled it. Yeah. So, okay. I do feel like, I'd be willing. So I'll have some links I'll send you, Darren. Have you seen my print shop automation videos?
I'd have watched all of them.
Okay. we could redo something like that. And maybe do it with a little more input. If people really want to do that, they could follow along and we could do a series of something if you want to set something like that up.
Absolutely. I know just the process we can build.
Okay. But I mean, a real life process is good because I didn't build our process. When I built that, I tried to simplify it a lot. Like these procedures and things like that we go through are the way they're built is, I mean, there's thousands of lines of code that control all that stuff. So you wouldn't want to build it like that for your first solution.
One other thing that I want to make sure we cover in this video is like, how do people buy FileMaker? How do they even get it? Because
as far as I know,
recommendations of like where to find a developer.
Yeah, I really like. There's a lot of them out there, but hopefully my stuff popping up isn't anything that's Nick Hunter Consulting. Nick Hunter's a guy. You can go. Nick Hunter's not the place to start with FileMaker. RCC Consulting. Okay, Richard Carlton Consulting. I really like these guys. They have their FileMaker training videos. They do a live stream every single day for an hour going over FileMaker stuff. Some days, this is Richard Carlton. He's the owner. And I've never met him in person, but I have talked to him over email a couple of times. Every day they go over it. They've got all their training and stuff. And for, let's see, FM Training Plus solution, this is the bundle. Let's see, complete subscription. I think you'll receive this one here. This is probably a good place to start. You get all their content that goes through FileMaker, like from the very beginning to the end, and a copy of FileMaker 2023 for $399. So that's one way to do it. FileMaker is coming out with a freemium version. I don't know if, well, I mean, I know it, and I'm not like, I have nothing to do with FileMaker and Apple other than I'm a user of it. But I think it's Claris, right?
Yeah, because there's FileMaker and then there's Claris.
They're rebranding it. They're having kind of an identity crisis, I think, right now.
WordPress.org.
Yeah, they're having an identity crisis. I wouldn't. Yeah, Claris FileMaker, right? So pricing, I don't know. Yeah, so cloud. This is like hosted in the cloud. This will be easier. You're not setting up your own thing, but you can go and like on my desktop here, you can go build. Well, here's FM FileMaker Starting Point 22 Lite. You can go download this from Richard Carlton Consulting for free. And this is like an MIS system kind of, or a CMS system, client customer management system. And this is like hosted. This is just sitting locally on my desktop. If that makes sense. So you can go do something like that and play with that. Man, I mean, there's like, I don't know.
Well, like the version you have was just like a one-time purchase, right?
What?
The version you have, you just bought with.
No, we pay annually. It's not like it's cheap for us because like my alternative is $250,000. But I don't. We pay $3,000-$4,000 annually for all of our seats, something like that. One seat is that $200-$300 annually. But I mean, you start breaking it down, and they'll probably eventually come out with this where it's 30, 40, $50 a month. I mean, that's how much is Monday? Somewhere in there, probably
$60 a month for two seats or something.
So
30 bucks.
right. So it's similar. That shouldn't be your barrier. Like if you're willing to take the time to build all this stuff, and you really have a business that can benefit from this stuff, like the cost of FileMaker is nothing. Like it, and I know that's easy for me to say, with the budget we have and stuff like that. But even back when we were much smaller, it's like if it's $40 or $80 or $1,000 even is stopping you, then don't do it, because that, like, the time commitment and everything else is just going to eat you alive.
Well, the other thing to think about when doing stuff like this in general, like, you have to realize that, like, even for me, like, if I can save myself an hour a day,
yeah,
it's worth the monthly expense.
Yeah.
Because, like, I honestly don't know what I pay myself. I'm not, like, next month is my actual first time I'm W-2ing myself, like, after
good for you.
running full time for 3 years. So, like, I'm finally putting myself on payroll.
Yeah.
But, like, if I can save 1 hour, like, let's just use the example of maybe it costs $30 a seat. Like, if I can save 1 hour a day, that's worth more. That's like worth $30 a day, not $30 a month.
Right.
And so that's where I think it comes down to. Sometimes people have the wrong, like, perspective of, like, what the money goes for, because, like, if you look at it, $30 a day, that's $1 a day, or $30 a month is $1 a day.
Yeah.
Is it worth $1 amount of value? And yes, it can add up super fast. If you have all these different subscriptions and all these different things, then yes, all of a sudden your monthly outlay can be massive. But if, like, people are calling me crazy because we're moving the lasers across the shop. Well, I'm moving the lasers because every time we have to clean a tumbler, we walk 100 feet.
Yeah.
So yes, it's costing me a couple $1,000 to read and move stuff, but it's like, but now it saves me like 2-3 minutes per tumbler.
Yeah, and that does that kind of stuff that adds up for sure. The thing about, like, FileMaker versus some of these more off the shelf. So you can get something. I've used Shopbox, and I don't mean to pick on them. I think they're a great company. I've met the guys that run it. They're awesome. But anyway, the something like Shopbox, where it's like kind of off the shelf, built for sign shops, is how they originally kind of started. And there's all kinds of tools like that. Those are going to be really easy to get started. They're going to have, not easy, they're still a huge challenge, but they're going to be much more turnkey, guided through the process of setting up certain automations and things like that. But then whenever that limit of that ceiling hits, that limit's there, and that's as far as you're going to get with it. And then you have to make the decision: do we keep going with this piece of software, or do we need to do something different? And then if you do something different, you're totally relearning it. With something like FileMaker, something as powerful as FileMaker is, it's, for me, it's like learning how to use my drill, right? Or my all the tools in my toolbox. It's like really understanding Excel at a deep level, where something, when people approach me with data problems, or even like data automation problems, like, I immediately start thinking in FileMaker as to how I can fix that. So if you walk me through, and I don't know if we have time to do this right now, but if you walk me through a couple of the problems that you're kind of facing day to day, where your automation stuff's not moving smoothly through your system, I can probably think of ways, like when they were asking me about the follow-up emails, when that was a question, I think in FileMaker in terms of how I would solve that. And so there's a million ways to solve that problem, but FileMaker is a tool that I have to solve those issues. And whether I'm in printing or signage, or I go and start selling cars, I suspect that I'll always have some FileMaker solution that's helping me kind of organize the data that I'm working with every day. And so you learn that tool, and it's invaluable. It's a true tool that you can take with you to any organization, any workflow. So it's useful in that way.
So one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. You said there's an iOS app. Like, what does that allow you to do?
It allows you, so the iOS app allows you, I don't really have it on my phone, but if you build these layouts, so it's responsiveness in FileMaker's a little bit challenging. You can see this is kind of responsive. But I actually have it to fully utilize the full screen, so I'm not bothered too much with the responsiveness. But you can build layouts that are either responsive, or you can say, you can ask, what operating system are you? And if the operating system's iOS, then you can build screens, layouts for iOS. And you can interact. You can do all of the interaction just about in FileMaker. You can do either on a desktop computer or iOS. What you miss, which we didn't talk about this very much, we talked about the MBS plugin. You can't have any plugins or anything like that with the iOS app. So, for example, I use a plugin to generate thumbnails, and I use a plugin to generate the code so that we can print the labels and things like that. The ZPL, not the barcode, but the actual code that creates this label. I need the plugins for that, so I can't generate like a new label while on the iOS app. But I can go in and I can click complete, and I can move jobs through the system and things like, I can do all that stuff, all the raw FileMaker stuff.
Right.
No, you can still see the thumbnails. I can't because they're generated and then they're stored. Yeah. So I couldn't use an iOS app to sync new jobs from a website or to move artwork around and modify the artwork. You need a desktop for that kind of stuff. But like one of the things I'm working on is an iPad iOS app where it's not built for the iPad, it's just built for screen that size, and because it works the same, and it doesn't use any plugins or anything. But it's the managers can walk around, they can scan jobs using the camera on the iPad, things like that. That all works very well in FileMaker, and you can check job statuses or figure out what's the story behind something, things like that. So all that kind of stuff is well within the bounds of the iOS app. So it's not standalone though. It's a tool to connect to your hosted FileMaker solution. You can't like build an app that somebody could download and just use.
Now I have a question. Can you like specifically with like iPad? I'm sure the answer is yes. And you make it so that it could record a video and store it with the job.
Yeah, I don't know that recording. Now you can take a photo. I don't know if the iOS app will let you record a video and store it. It probably will. I never tried that, and it's been a long time since I messed with the iOS app. It's probably something we could Google. This is a good record video through iOS FileMaker, right? And I bet there's some here. Get past the sponsored content here. How to record capture screen of your iOS device. You use insert from device as the actual FileMaker thing. Yep, video camera, insert device. Video camera, front, back, you get to pick. Resolution, you get to pick. Max duration, yep, right there. Video camera. You'd be able to record a video and insert it into your FileMaker database. So, I can get big. You can really start driving size of your database up and stuff like that. But so you want to record like the first one coming off the line or something. So you've got video evidence of you printing the first one or something like that. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, for me specifically, a lot of times customers want to build like pens. They want to be able to promote the pen themselves.
Yeah.
And so if I can provide them a video, like if I can, basically my thought is how can I automate this process?
Right.
Right now, the way that I do it is all with auto hotkey, and I have a back end script that clicks buttons and does things so it loads. And my thought was, okay, I'm just going to hook up a webcam that when you load the job, it waits 30 seconds, then it starts the camera, and then it saves the file. But my brain is now ticking in ways because, again, my current goal is to make my hands like almost as much as it can be automated and take out every bit of human interaction except the artwork.
Yeah, how you're doing it is kind of how I was thinking about doing it, because the problem with the iOS thing is like you've got this iPad, so I suppose you could mount the iPad so it's kind of doing it, but so if you have the iPad mounted in a way that you can't. One thing that's challenging with FileMaker, and you'll run into this real fast if you're trying to do a lot of in-shop automation, is you can't easily, there's little hacks that you can do, but you can't easily call a client to do something for you, another client. So I can't, on my computer, I can't very easily tell another computer to do something, right? So I can't make it like, I can't turn the camera on the iPad. It's more of a security and a safety thing, but I can't turn the camera on the iPad from another device. You have to actually interact with the iPad. So like what popped in my head when you were talking about that would be a webcam that's like recording in 20-minute or 20-second intervals, or you have something that's triggering the webcam to record. It's saving files somewhere. And then based on a timestamp of when you said you completed the job in FileMaker would go look at that file and then add it to the record. Right. And so that's probably how I would approach that if we wanted to do that. We've actually talked about doing that where we'll mount a barcode scanner on the printer. So as stuff's printing, it automatically scans the barcode, like as it's being rolled on the take up roll. And that would confirm that it printed, not just Onyx and the print queue telling us that it printed, but we physically scanned the barcode. So we know that it came out of the printer, and that's pretty fail safe. Like to actually, there's a barcode printed, chances are at least some of that job printed,
Right.
And now if we scan the back barcode, now we know the whole job at least got to that point where it tried to print, So we've talked about that kind of stuff before, which is, I think, similar.
Oh man, my brain is,
my
day is ruined.
Yeah. Well, FileMaker's you and I are very similar in a way where we're just tinkerers, right? We're always thinking about like how to make things better, and we want to like build these systems, and we enjoy the process of making things better. It's not just about the end result. It's about the journey there. And FileMaker's a hell of a tool to like add to that. But I started by watching Chris Ippolite's videos on LinkedIn Learning. It used to be lynda.com. And that was like an 8 or 9 hour thing. I actually just listened to him while I was driving for like 5 hours, and I never even got into FileMaker. I just kind of listened to the whole thing and 5-6 hours. And then I opened up FileMaker and I started building Lumen. And like every step was like, how do I do this? And then I'd go learn. How do I do this? And I'd go learn. And that's where I am right now. And I'm a little bit better than an amateur. So,
well, this is a great start.
Yeah.
We'll do a live stream, everyone.
Yeah, it's probably going to end up being 4.5 hours long.
Well, go over all of that.
We'll have to break it up, maybe. Maybe we'll cap them at 1 hour, but then we'll do as many as we need.
And maybe it's I'm going to build something and show people.
I'm happy. If you can't tell, like I love being on the trade only side, because like there's an economic incentive for me to explain all this stuff, because the people who want to watch this video are people who own sign shops and print shops, and they're potentially our clients. And we're trade only because of that, because we like to share what we know and we like to work within a community. I don't know what the other way is, but that's one of the big reasons why we chose to do this, is to be able to, I don't know, nobody's really our competitor. We have some big ones, but even them, I just admire the heck out of them. All the printers with numbers in their names are just huge and 10 times, 100 times our size. And we admire them, but even then it's not that. We're here to work with you. So, If that's a live stream going through FileMaker, that's fine.
Well, thank you for going over this with us today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.